which I thought was great. Opportunities for growth. When your number gets called, you got to be ready and you must execute. And that's obviously why that yard total was 3 quarters, because we didn't do that for 4 quarters once we substituted. I think we got to get better in the run game on offense. Not that we will necessarily call the game any different, but when we do decide to run or need to run, that we feel like we can be efficient doing so. Ball security, high and tight, something we've done a good job and emphasized all year long. And again, late in the game, guys go in, get an opportunity, and the ball goes on the ground a couple times. However, it was interpreted by the officials, shouldn't have been on the ground in the first place. And then punt locations. I think we can do a little bit better job with our punt locations to help our coverage units out as much as possible. Getting into Indiana and Tom Allen, obviously got a lot of respect for them and what they've been able to do, and specifically what Coach Allen's been able to do. You're talking about a team that's returning 22 starters from the previous season. And obviously they've gotten some momentum as a program and are really doing some nice things. When you talk about offense, defense, and special teams, Nick Sheridan, the offensive coordinator, I think does a really good job. They got a good system there. They have kept the system the same from when their coordinator left to go to Fresno State as the head coach. 8 returning starters on offense, and obviously a veteran quarterback who's done some really good things in Michael Penix. And then we're very familiar with Ty Freifogel as well as Peyton Hendershot, who we recruited heavily. On the defensive side of the ball, Carlton Warren, obviously he's got tremendous experience. You look at his resume, all the places he's been, what he's been able to do. Obviously, Tom's a defensive guy as well. 9 starters returning on that side of the ball. Micah McFadden, obviously the All-American linebacker, jumps out to you. Tywan McMullen jumps out to you as a defensive back and a playmaker. And then on special teams, Casey Tiergan, I hope I said that right. Excuse me if I didn't. All 5 returning starters on that unit. That's been very, very effective. So got a tremendous challenge, got a tremendous opportunity. And, I thought Sunday we had good meetings and practice. I thought that was a real positive for us. Yesterday was our off day. Obviously, today will be really important. I'll have a better idea of where we're at after today's practice from a scheme, game plan, fundamental technique, and mentality after today. So open up to questions. Thanks, guys.
We'll start with Greg Pickle from Blue White Illustrated and then go to Mark Brennan.
You got me?
I do now. Yes, sir. Hey, Greg.
All right. Good afternoon. How are you?
Good. How are you, man?
I'm doing well, thanks. What do you want to see out of your team today at practice? I know, obviously, yesterday was the off day, like you just said, but what do you want to see different from last week today?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say, specifically different. I just want to see us take another step. I thought we did that, like I said, during training camp, and then week 1, week 2. I thought we did that in week 3. I thought last week we were a little bit inconsistent in our approach and our mentality. So, I guess if you're being specific, it'd be that. But I just want us to take another step. I want us to understand what a tremendous opportunity, but also what a challenge we have come Saturday night. And I want to make sure that I feel like everybody within the organization, the players, the coaches, the trainers, the managers, everybody, understands that each one of these days and each one of these meeting sessions or each one of these practice sessions are like gold, and we need to take advantage of them because it could be that rep, it could be that play that is the difference in the game. So I just want to see that. I want to see an attention to detail, and I want to see a focus, and I want to see us take another step in the right direction.
Mark Brennan, Lions 247 with Fight on State, then Audrey Snyder.
Hey, James, thanks for your time today.
You as well, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, how would you...
That seems like a much more like professional studio setup you got. Was that?
It's just a big,
mic?
Giant microphone.
It's impressive.
I appreciate it. Hey, how would you assess the play of your O line so far this season? Because obviously the passing game's gone real well, and you've mentioned a couple times about the running game not being maybe where you would like it to be. I'm sorry if I'm putting words in your mouth, but how would you assess the play of your O line overall? Thank you.
Yeah, I think overall I would say good. I think as a full group and a full unit, and obviously finding a way to be 1-0 each week and putting points on the board, and I think we have protected the quarterback better, probably in a 4-game stretch to start the season than we have in the past. I still think we can be a little bit better there. I'd like to see us play with a little bit more of an edge. I'd like to see us play with a little bit more of an edge, specifically in the run game, but really in the pass game as well. There's opportunities, when you're slide protecting or whatever it may be, and you don't have a threat in your gap, and you can kick the defensive end or help the offensive tackle on the defensive end. I'd like to see us play with a little bit more of an edge. But overall, I'd give us a positive grade so far as an O-line unit.
Audrey Snyder, The Athletic, and then Ben Jones.
I wanted to ask about
Audrey, could you start from the beginning? I don't know if I got the beginning cut off.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I wanted to ask about your kind of where you think your pass rush is. Obviously, you guys blitz a lot, but when you're not blitzing, how do you think that rush has been?
Yeah, I think you got to look at the whole picture, right? What are people doing to you? How many times are they actually dropping back? Or is it like Villanova's game plan, which was to quick game, RPO, cut, sprint out, get the ball, which was a smart plan, obviously. So I think you got to look at it all. I would like for us to get more pressure. I'd like for us to get more sacks. That will always be the case because they obviously are momentum and drive. They're drive killing plays. They're impactful. There's no doubt about it. I think it has an effect on the drive. It has an effect on people's ability to score. And I think it also has the impact on a quarterback psyche when he's just getting hit and pressured a lot. So there's a lot of reasons why it's important. But overall, I think we've been solid. I think we can be better in that area, more pressure, more sacks. But I also think, again, you have to factor in, what have people been trying to do against us? What was their game plan going into the game? And I thought, specific to Villanova, they were smart with what they did.
Ben Jones, StateCollege.com, then Daniel Gallen.
And I should also say, Audrey, no one knows better about Villanova's plan against us than you. Fair point.
How's it going, James?
Good. How are you, Ben?
Good. You mentioned, I think it was 16% explosive play rate for your offense. What does that represent exactly? Because it seems like a sort of a number that's at the end of an equation somewhere. And how do you kind of balance all of the analysts and the numbers that you get thrown at you with maybe the feel that you just have for the game itself?
So I don't know if I understood the second part of your question. I'm sorry.
You just have a lot of analysts and a lot of numbers and a lot of information and data. How do you balance that with maybe what your feel for the game is, or maybe the things that come more organically versus we have to hit these certain benchmarks?
Gotcha. Okay. First of all, when you talk about the 16%, we did not run the numbers last year because, again, I think last year skewed a lot of things for people. But typically, if you are 16% or higher on offense, that's going to put you, at the top, third, top quarter of your conference, and the same thing nationally. It'd make you one of the more explosive teams in the country. And then on defense, our number's 10% or less. And again, that typically is going to put you in the top 2 or 3 in your conference, and one of the top, in the country as well in terms of limiting explosive plays and creating explosive plays. But those numbers, to your point, Ben, change. The third down numbers 10 years ago are very different than what third down numbers are now. I mean, it used to be if you were at 40% on third down, you were really good. One of the tops probably in your conference, and now it's closer to about 50%. Offensive numbers have changed dramatically in the last probably 10 years. So we kind of come up with these numbers, and then we try to do a study in the off season and make sure that they're still accurate. But again, we didn't do that this past year because you're not comparing apples to apples. In terms of the statement that you made in terms of having a lot of analysts, we actually don't. We have about average of what most programs in the country have at this time. But I think to what your point is there's a lot of information, and how do you use it all effectively? And I think that's one of the things that you have to be careful, right? Is, there's the numbers that you're getting from the data and analytics people, and then there's also the feel of the game, the flow of the game, the momentum of the game. How is your offense playing at that moment? How is the defense playing at that moment? How the special teams playing at that moment? What is your matchups? Okay, what you thought your matchups were going to be, how are they during the game? So all those things kind of factor in. So you just try to get as much information as you possibly can, and then I think you have to trust your instincts. You have to trust your instincts when you have time. It's obviously great to get on the headset and talk to Coach Yursich or Coach Pry or Coach Lorig and get their perspective. Especially if we're thinking about going forward on fourth down, and if we don't pick it up, the defense and Coach Pry's unit is going to have to deal with the consequences to that. So making sure he's on the same page with it. But it's a balance, right? I have a meeting each week to go over kind of game strategy for that game, but based on our opponent, how we're going to handle short yardage situations, how we're going to handle 2-point play situations. And then we actually have another meeting, or I guess it's the same meeting, reviewing the previous game. So how did we do in those situations? What would we do differently now looking back at it? And then, like I said, planning for the next game based on what the data tells you. And then I think the other thing, Ben, that's extremely valuable for me and our staff and really for our players is, watching situational football that pops up in other college games, situational football that pops up in the NFL. The interesting one I literally just got done watching because I was trying to decide whether I showed a team or not was the 49ers situation with the Green Bay Packers this week. It's interesting because the 49ers need to score, in a 2-minute drive, but then you need to score, and you need to score in a way that's going to leave the least amount of time for that Aaron Rodgers dude on the opposite sideline who I was with, his rookie year when we drafted him. But it's funny because if you get too conservative, then you may not end up scoring the touchdown. But it's that fine line as we need to score here, which scoring is hard, but then we also need to score and take as much time off the clock as possible because with that offense and that quarterback on the opposite sideline, you can't afford to leave them any time. So that's always the fine line and the balance of all these situations. And obviously, when it works, it's great, and when it doesn't, then you leave yourself open to be critiqued and second guess, which I get. That's part of it. So we try to use those, whether it's NFL games. I think the current stuff is really valuable because a lot of times the guys have watched it, and I got players texting me, "Coach, did you see the end of the 49ers game?" Or "Coach, did you see the end of the Old Dominion game?" Or whatever it may be. I just think it's more impactful, when I show them something that's current, that they can learn from, and it can create great dialogue and discussion for all of us.
Daniel Gallen, Penn Live, and then we'll go to New Bias.
Good afternoon, James.
How you doing?
Doing well. You mentioned it after the game Saturday and earlier today, talking about wanting to see your team play with an edge. To you, what does that edge look like? When you say edge, what are you looking for?
I'm looking for fanatical effort, which I think we've done a pretty good job of playing with really good effort. And I'm looking for an amount of aggressiveness that is right up to the edge of what is legal and appropriate, from the snap of the ball until the whistle is blown. So nothing that's gonna be viewed or looked at as dirty. Nothing that's going to create penalties after the snap. But when people watch us play, that they see a team that plays with tremendous effort and aggressiveness from the time the ball snapped to the whistle's blown. And I would even say to the echo of the whistle, which I used to say all the time. But what's amazing to me now, a lot of times in college football, and I think the NFL, is sometimes the whistle never blows, which is a whole nother discussion. I know when I say that, people probably look at me like I'm crazy, but you literally get to the point now where officials don't want to blow the whistle too soon, because if there's a fumble, they want to make sure that the play was over. And then I'm like, well, how do I tell my guys when the play's done? Like, well, they should know. What do you mean they should know? We're trained with the whistle. So I like our guys to play with tremendous effort and aggressiveness from the time the ball snapped to the whistle is blown.
Tobias Wilborn, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and then John Sauber.
James, we know you. First of all, how are you today, man?
Good. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. Can't complain. Obviously, you guys repeatedly say you don't believe in revenge games, want to know every week. But you guys have used examples from last year's game against Indiana to help improve your red zone defense, or as far as like to harp on the importance of it. How do you balance using examples from previous years or previous games with not being too focused on the revenge factor of it?
Well, because the only people that I ever hear use those terms is when I get a question like this. We use examples, like I said, of the 49ers. We go back and watch our tape and learn from it and make corrections. But our entire focus and energy is on beating Indiana this Saturday, this season. And although previous records, I think, are interesting to look at, previous records against certain opponents and all these types of things. But at the end of the day, all that really matters is you have to find a way to beat the team that you are playing this Saturday. When we do our film breakdown, do we look at, especially at this point of the year where it's still fairly early, where you're looking at the most recent games played, and then do you also probably include our game last year? As long as most of the coordinators are the same, do you factor that in? Yes. But for us, we're trying to beat Tom Allen and the Indiana football team for this season and this season alone.
John Sauber, Center Daily Times, then Mike Gross.
Hi, James. Your top three receivers saw 75% of your team's target in the two games against Power 5 opponents, which were the only games you guys didn't go deep in the depth chart. Is that kind of the plan moving forward, to lean heavily on that top three? And if not, how do you involve more guys offensively?
Yeah, I think most people, right? I think that statistic is probably going to be pretty consistent for most people. Your starters are going to get most of your targets. I'd like the number to expand to four guys, and when I say four guys, I'm talking about the tight end position, whoever happens to be in on that time. But I think that's the important thing, right? You'd like to be in a situation where the team you're playing and the defensive coordinator you're playing doesn't really feel comfortable bracketing anybody, because there's too many other guys that can hurt you. Okay, yeah, if we decide to bracket Jahan Dotson or bracket Parker Washington, then these other guys are going to hurt you, whether it's the tight end position or whether it's the X or whatever it may be. Keandre obviously shows that he can make some big plays. Our tight ends have showed that they can make some big plays. And then again, when we choose to run the ball, if you're effective and explosive in that area as well, now you just become really challenging to defend, especially when people know that Sean's got enough mobility. Sean had a big time play last year, a big run against them early in the game. But I think that's when you become really difficult to defend and have a chance to be elite on offense.
Mike Gross, LNP News, and then Rich Scarcella.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Good, Mike. How are you, man?
I'm good. I understand you called me Neil last week. Thank you. I consider that a compliment.
Did I?
So that's what they tell me.
If I did, I apologize.
That's okay. Anyway, when people talk about struggling in the run game, I think most people would think, your offensive line's got to fire off the ball and knock the guy opposite them backwards. But it seems like opposing linebackers have made an awful lot of plays against you so far this year. I thought the kid for Villanova had a great game. Obviously, Wisconsin, that was the case. Is there anything you can do better in terms of getting the linebacker level blocked or fooling the linebackers or whatever? Am I crazy, or is that a thing?
No, I think it's fair. I think it's all of it, right? It starts with getting knocked back, on the line of scrimmage, and then it's talking about, getting knocked back on the down lineman and then double team into a linebacker. It's about breaking tackles and making people miss. And then it's how can you create some indecision and hesitation with them with the motions and the shifts and some of the misdirection stuff to keep them honest so they can't play as fast and as aggressive as they want. The RPOs play into that too. I'd also make the argument one of the reasons why we're throwing the ball so well is because people are committing so many people to the box to stop the run. So I think, Neil, like most things, right, it's not one thing. It's easy to talk just about the O-line. And like I said earlier, I think overall our O-line's playing pretty good. But it's a combination of all those things. And again, when we can become just a little bit more efficient in the run game and a little bit more explosive in the run game, then I think we got a chance to be really difficult to defend. I think it also helps you a little bit in the low red zone. And I think it also helps you a little bit in short yardage situations where people, feel like, again, that they have to defend both.
Rich Scarcella, Reading Eagle, then Donnie Collins.
Hi, James. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay. James, the last 3 games against Indiana have been very, very close. What is it about Indiana that they seem to match up well with you guys?
Yeah, well, a couple things. I think your point is accurate. First of all, I think Tom's done a really good job. I think they got a good scheme, and I think they play hard. And I think they've recruited well. And to be honest with you, I don't think it's just Penn State. I think their program has improved. And they're doing that against a lot of people. I've watched them on tape, watched them on TV on Thursday night games. I think for a couple of years, if I remember correctly, getting home after my radio show on a Thursday night, watching them play Ohio State real tough one year. So they've improved, and that improvement has allowed them to win a few more games and has allowed them to play, pretty much everybody in a competitive way. But I think, again, part of it is scheme. I think part of it is talent. And I think part of it is confidence. And they've done a good job in those 3 areas, in my mind, to allow them not just to compete against Penn State, but with a lot of people.
Donnie Collins, Times Tribune, and then Neil Rudell.
Hey, James.
How are we doing?
I'm doing well. You said after the game something to the effect of not wanting to have setbacks to grow. How do you teach that? Is that an especially difficult thing for younger kids who've had a lot of success in their athletic careers to kind of learn, as they get into the higher levels?
Yeah, I think it's hard. I I think it's hard for a lot of reasons. I think a lot of times for young people, the success sometimes can be more difficult to handle, to navigate than even the adversity is sometimes. And when you're walking around on campus, everybody's patting you on the back and telling you how wonderful you are, and you're on social media and you're reading all the positive things, and it's easy to get caught up in that. And we just got to continue to hammer it home that it's a weakness to get caught up in either, right? The praise or the criticism. So we want our guys to be focused on the task at hand and to use our process and the steps and how we prepare each week and try to tune out as much of that stuff as we possibly can. But it's easier said than done. There's no doubt about it. But what we just try to do is educate our guys as much as we possibly can, keep hammering the message home. And then, like I said, like we do in most areas, is try to show them examples of programs and teams that didn't do that. You lose a game you're not supposed to, or just don't play the way you're capable of playing.
Neil Rudell, Altoona Mirror, and then Joe Giuliano.
Hey, James. I probably have some relatives named Gross. That's might be part of that.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Can you assess the overall tailback play so far? Do you feel like you have a number one tailback, and are you satisfied with the distribution of the carries?
Yeah, I'm satisfied. Like we have said since training camp, we're going to rotate 3 backs in there. We'll continue to do that. I think there's always going to be a kind of a sense of wanting more and thinking that we can get more. That's breaking more tackles. That's being physical when you need to be physical. That's bouncing when bouncing is appropriate. And more times than not, we want to be downhill and cut back than bounce. But I think we'd love to get a little bit more explosive plays. We'd like to be a little bit more physical on short yardage situations. Like to break a few more tackles. And I think, like I said, I think it's a combination of all of it. It's the tight ends, it's the O-line, it's the running backs, it's the coaches, it's all of us. But I would say solid so far. I think what's probably undervalued sometimes is some of the stuff in the protection game, and some of the stuff in the pass game. Noah jumps out in my mind specifically. Some of the plays that he made on the perimeter and breaking tackles and making people miss. Especially late in that Wisconsin game, the passing game, and things like that. So overall, solid. I think we can get a lot better there, and I think we are a lot better there.
Joe Giuliano, Philadelphia Inquirer, and then Ali Barubi.
Hello, James.
Hey, Joe.
Michael Penix threw 6 picks in his first 3 games, but last week he didn't throw any and passed for 373 yards. What have you seen in his development from this year, and how much better do you think he's gotten from last year?
Yeah, I think that's the point, right? That's the point with all quarterbacks. That's the point with all teams. That turnover ratio is critical. Your touchdown to interception ratio is critical. We've done a pretty good job of that on both sides of the ball, protecting the football and attacking the football on defense. And obviously, Michael did a good job of that last week. I thought he played really well. Played really well. So, has he improved? Yeah, he's a veteran. Has played a lot of football for them right now. Obviously, last year, he had a special year. He's had to fight through injuries. I think all that adversity, I think when handled the right way, helps you. But that's going to be a key factor in this game, right? How well he plays and how consistently we can get to him, and I think that's going to be a huge factor in this game.
Ali Barubi, ABC 27, and then we'll go to John Petishnock.
James, how's it going?
Hey, Ali, good. How are you?
Good. After Saturday's game, Sean Clifford said he feels like this is the best team in the country. And in the past, you've talked about making a leap from being a great team to an elite team in college football. Where do you think you are on that journey? And do you kind of agree with him that this team has the potential to be the best in the country?
I just want to beat Indiana. I appreciate Sean's confidence, and I appreciate Sean's belief in his teammates and the program and the statement. But as you guys know, and I know you guys hate it because it seems boring, but I just want to beat Indiana. And I think if we approach it like that week in and week out, it'll give us the best chance to reach our potential, whatever that may be. So I appreciate Sean and his confidence and his belief in his teammates and our program and type of support that we've gotten for the community and the buzz and excitement that we feel in Happy Valley right now. But what I'd prefer is that everybody pour their energy into Indiana and our players preparing like they've never prepared before for a game, and our fans packing Beaver Stadium and making Saturday night one of the toughest environments in all of college football. And then Saturday night, we can have another discussion about where we sit in the football hierarchy. And then I'll probably give you another boring answer. But I just want to find a way to beat Indiana.
Dave Melandra from Nittany Lions Sports Wire, and then we'll go to Tyler Donahue. That's my fault. John Petishnock, you're first. I'm going to go to Dave.
Yeah, no worries, Chris. Hey, good afternoon, James. Appreciate your time today. Hey, I wanted to ask you about team arrival, specifically when the blue buses are pulling up to the stadium and you see the tailgating lots packed and the fans waiting for the team. Do you just mind sharing what's going through your mind and what is that moment like for you?
I would say, appreciative and emotional. And it's really before that, you kind of get a sense, and I'm not even sure if everybody kind of knows the route we go, but, we come from the hotel, and instead of coming out there on the highway, we make a right and go down the street to the end of that street. It's kind of a cul-de-sac type deal. And then we just we hop the curb, about 70 miles an hour and go through these it's kind of like a gravel road. And then we kind of weave our way back up, behind the intramural fields. And that's really kind of when you get the first kind of ideas. You make a right there. You see the stadium, and there's a family that sits there. They got a really cool tailgating area. It's kind of right on the edge of the end of the tailgate area, and they're playing cornhole and having a good time. And they usually give us a big cheer when we go by, and then it starts to kind of fill up from there. And obviously, based on those fields and how packed they are, and kind of the drive down to the street there. To be honest, I don't know any names of streets in State College, but you get down to that street and you make the right. Chris, if you go left, it takes you to the stadium. You go right there, Fox Hollow. Yeah, you make the right there at Fox Hollow, and then before you go under the underpass, like you're going back to what's that, like golf, Tall Trees. Thank you, everybody's helping me. Before you go under that underpass, go to Tall Trees, we actually make another left and kind of go back on like another gravel road. And just kind of as you're going, you kind of get a sense. There's people walking down the street. There's, the tailgate section is getting packed, and then we kind of make the left there by the law building. And there's like a student section that's like chaos back there. I probably shouldn't say that, but it's like chaos back there, and they're going crazy. And then you start to kind of work through campus, and everybody's either walking to the stadium or walking to that student tailgate area, and you just kind of, it starts to build, right? It starts to build, and you kind of get a feel for it. And then we get up to Lash, and then the other bus of players is waiting for us, the guys that aren't on the travel squad, and then they join in. And we continue to weave our way through campus, and then we start to pull up, towards the baseball stadium, and then that's when you kind of get, the complete feel of how it is. I think it's a great way to enter a stadium. I think it's one of the better entrances to a stadium in college football. Obviously, it's another opportunity for our players to see their parents one more time or their loved ones before we go in. And then you usually have the stage set up there and the band and cheerleaders, and it's really cool. And then I do my lap. So I think it's a great way to kind of start the game experience, and you get a pretty good sense pretty early on from the time we leave the hotel in what type of environment it's going to be in Beaver Stadium. It was a long answer, but I hope it was all right. I'm sorry I didn't know any of the streets.
Last two questions. Dave Melandra from Nittany Lions Wire, and then Tyler Donahue will wrap us up.
Hey, Coach, I got two-part question for you. One, is there anything in particular you can take away from your matchup against Indiana last year? And secondly, as you know, you don't like distractions, but what do you say to those high school recruits that are looking to potentially come to Penn State, but with your name being linked to the USC job? What is your message to them?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you come to the press conferences weekly, but I've already answered that and addressed that in detail multiple times. But we're excited about playing Indiana. It's a tremendous opportunity, tremendous focus. We've got the number 1 ranked recruiting class in the country right now, so pretty pleased with how we're handling all of these things. But our focus is on Indiana.
Last question is to Tyler Donahue, Lions 247.
Wanted to ask about your.
Is that your backyard, Tyler?
Lost you.
Now we got you.
Got you back.
Okay. Yeah, this is my backyard. Yeah, took it outside with the rain broken up here.
It's a nice setting.
Sorry, lost the ability to communicate with you for a moment there. Anyways, going back to post game Saturday, you talked about wanting to coach your team hard on Sunday, having an uncomfortable day. It sounded like, and you felt like, knowing what you knew about the team, they'd respond. How did you see that respond carry over coming out of the game?
Well, I guess for me is I want to be strategic and intentional about everything that I do and everything that we do. I do believe that back to our kind of points earlier about being able to grow and learn through wins. I think coming in on a Sunday, I think you can be pretty aggressive in trying to get the things that need to get cleaned up after a win. I think people are less defensive and more open to hearing, the feedback, the constructive criticism, whatever it may be. That's as a staff, that's as players, that's all of us. And I feel like, our players kind of bought into that and understand that. I hear the veterans saying that to the young guys, in the locker room after the game. Those Sundays are really important. And to me, there's a big difference between corrections, you just got beat by another really good player. Those things I think we can deal with. It's any signs of effort, issues that can never be tolerated, or guys that are doing things outside of the system. Those things cannot be tolerated. Now, if you have an idea and you want to try something, you want to discuss it with the coaching staff ahead of time, and we want to say, hey, that's a good idea, we want to incorporate that into the plan, or that does not make sense and that doesn't fit, and this is why. I think those things are all fine, and that's part of the process. But the stuff that you see on tape, specifically late in the game when we had guys in there that aren't normally getting as many reps, it's a great opportunity to kind of address those things and get those things fixed. And I thought Sunday was really good. I was a little edgy on Sunday, and again, that was intentional for everybody to make sure that we are not satisfied or complacent with where we're at. But again, today will be important. Sundays kind of, it's one thing to have a tough meeting, but you're out there in your shorts and still the weather's still beautiful, and the music's going on at practice and all those types of things. But Tuesday's a work day. We're full pads and it's a work day, and Tuesdays and Wednesdays are usually very telling at what your mentality and your approach is like and what your culture is like.
Thank you very much, Coach.